guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about presentation skills, or rather presentation tips that I've collected in my long years during studying. I have a bachelor's in molecular biology and genetics, a master's in MBA, and another master's in cancer biology. So I am a professional student and I have given so many presentations. So I collected some of my best tips and I hope you'll like this video. This video is mostly going to be about academic presentations, meaning your master's defense or any class presentations that you have to do. If you want me to do a second video about presentations addressing more general talks like TED Talks or group talks or work-related presentations, give this video a thumbs up. I'll understand that you're interested in the topic and I'll make the second video. So the first point I want to make is that you have to have a very broad knowledge about the topic that you're going to present. This is essential, especially in academic talks. You have to have a really deep understanding and knowledge about the topic to be able to show to the audience that you are aware of what you're talking about. If I have to give an example, I was working with ABCB drug pumps in my master's research project, and I was trying to understand the role of these drug pumps in a particular subtype of childhood leukemia. And my whole presentation was actually about the role of these pumps in this disease, but I went ahead and understood the basics of the pump, the biochemistry, where else they're important and how do they work, as well as the childhood leukemia, all the basic understanding about the disease and the subtype, all that good stuff around my core topic. And that was very useful because actually during my defense, people ask me a lot of questions. If you want me to do a video about academic research, how I do it, which tools I use, you can leave your request down below in the comment section and I'll do it for you. My second tip is to decide the general outline of your presentation, and by that I mean what you're going to talk about in the introduction and what you're going to mention throughout the whole presentation. While you're doing this, you have to decide on... I'm sorry, my dog is... While you're doing this, you have to decide on what information is important and necessary. Since you are the one who knows most about this topic and you did a whole research about it, you might feel like a lot of information is important and necessary, but that's not necessarily the case. Sometimes, depending on the audience, some information are not as necessary and they actually distract the audience from getting the main point of your presentation. You have to always keep in mind who your audience is and also the time that you're allowed and the slide numbers. When I was doing my presentations, we were limited by a number of slides, so I also had to keep that in mind. For example, during my master's research, we had weekly group meetings with my research team, and there I always gave a lot of information and a lot of details about my experiments. And when I was doing my defense presentation, the end presentation of my master's, I actually had 25 minutes to talk about a year worth of research, and that means I couldn't talk about any of those experimental details, and I had to give a broad understanding of my project to the people who never heard of what I was doing the whole year. Number 3 is to decide which tool you're going to use. Obviously, PowerPoint is the best tool for academic purposes and it is accepted worldwide, but you're not limited to use only PowerPoint in your presentations, especially if you're working in an area or if you're studying in an area with visual arts or you want a little bit of creativity in your presentations. I like to suggest another tool which is called Prezi. I've been using it for years and years. I really enjoy the look of it. Here you can see a presentation that I prepared for my brand GET Estilo, and I really think that it is working a little bit better than PowerPoint to capture the interest of the audience, especially with this field because my brand is actually a visual brand. So it really depends on what kind of presentation you're giving, but keep in mind that there are other tools out there than PowerPoint. My next tip is about how your slides should look like, and here I feel like I should mention this because I've seen many people doing the same mistake. 70 to 80% of each slide should be visuals rather than text. You can also add text, but maximum of 20% to be able to capture the audience better. And this is only because when you're talking over a slide, people wouldn't know if they should listen to you or read what is written on your slide. And I'm seeing so many slides, text after text, and it's just very distracting for the audience. Therefore, I highly recommend that you keep in mind to make at least 70% of each slide consisting of visuals. My next tip is about utilizing that notes section under PowerPoint. I think Prezi also has some of those, I'm not sure. But I think those notes sections are not as used as they should be. What I like to do is when I'm already preparing my presentation, since most of my slides are visuals, I make notes in the notes section about what I want to talk about these visuals. If I'm putting a graph there, I put the whole explanation of the graph, what the axes are for, what the bullets are for, what the dots are for, and all that good stuff. You can do it in complete sentences, or you can do it in bullet points, which is what I like to do, but always try to transcribe kind of my slide into those notes section, and I use those notes later on. Which already brings me to my sixth tip, I think? Sixth tip? Yes. Which is to prepare cards. By cards, I mean talking or speaking cards where you would write some notes about your slides. I don't think that looking at cards or your presentation or your notes is particularly good for capturing the audience and interacting with them, but this could come handy if you use them while practicing your speech, or you can just have them in your hand just in case during your presentation. You can write on those cards from the notes that you prepared before, again as whole sentences or bullet points. I like to prepare one card per slide, and I also like to write every single line in a different color. This helps me majorly, especially when I'm trying to make eye contact with the audience, and when I look back at my cards, I immediately recognize which line I was because they are all color-coded, kinda. While we were talking about eye contact, let's go to my seventh tip, which is the interaction with the audience. Eye contact and interaction with the audience is, I think, one of the major points about giving a good presentation. And it also shows that you know what you're talking about, you practiced your whole presentation, and you know about the topic that you're talking about. I know that speaking in front of public is a huge reason for anxiety, and I have some tips for you to overcome that and still look like you are actually making eye contact with the audience, which is to actually find a space in the audience with an empty seat. And once you locate that empty seat in the beginning of your presentation, you can always keep looking at that one empty space and give that feeling that you're having an eye contact with a particular person in the audience, and not necessarily get that anxiety that comes from actual human interaction. Another tip would be picking another point in the room. For me, it's generally just above the heads of the people and in the back of the room. So I tend to, when I'm presenting something, I change my slide and I tend to go look there and talk a little bit facing there, like looking there, and then go back and then face again to that empty space, or however you want to transition in between. But I think picking those points, these locations in the room, might actually help you to change your face, change your body language a little bit, if you know what I mean, and also give that impression of the human interaction that you're kind of faking. My next tip is practice. Of course, you have to practice your speech, your presentation as much as you can. It also depends on how important that presentation is. If it's just a presentation for a class, maybe you might want to spend 1 or 2 days on it, 1 or 2 hours each. Or if it's a defense like mine, I spent, I think, 2 weeks presenting it over and over, and I was getting feedback from my husband mostly, but I was trying to make sure that I don't even have to look at my presentation or my notes or my cards. It's almost like I memorized what I had to say on each slide. And that is when I was really comfortable with my presentation, so I was using my hands more, I was using my gestures more, and I was actually able to make real eye contact. You can always practice how you want to use your voice, where you want to make points with your hands. You can practice all of your gestures basically while practicing. You can practice on your own, but what I would suggest is to practice with someone else, or rather a friend group. And I think you can ask them even to ask you questions and give you faces of disapproval, and then you can understand how you could cope with those kind of situations when the real deal is there. If you're going to use PowerPoint, I don't know if Prezi also has that, but you can also practice with time. If your time during your presentation will be limited, you would like to utilize that function as well. With this, you can see how much time you're spending on each of your slides, and if you want to talk faster or talk slower or maybe even cut some slides or some information out, you'll know better before the presentation. My next tip is about the fear of public speaking or the fear of saying something wrong, a wrong word, or anything that could go wrong kind of during a presentation. My biggest tip here is to have a bottle of water with you. If you already have a place to put your notebook, to put your laser pointer, you can also put a bottle of water there. Whenever you need to refocus, whenever you need to think of what you're gonna say next, or whenever you feel like there's going to be a question from the audience, you can just open the bottle. Take your time, but not too much with this, because that could be a little weird if you were drinking water super slowly. But drinking some water actually helps you to go back out from that stage and think a little bit and then come back again. And also, it could help with a dry mouth, the one I actually have right now. Coffee will do too. Any drink, actually, having it on your presentation area, around your presentation area, might help with this problem. Remember that anybody can do mistakes. If you say something wrong, just say "I'm sorry" or "excuse me," and just fix that problem then and there, and don't think about it anymore. Don't fixate on it throughout the rest of your presentation. That will only do harm, and remember that it happens to everybody. In time, with practice, your presentation skills will be better and better. The only thing to keep in mind is that you're only human, and everybody who are listening to you at that moment are aware of that too. The last tip I have is when you have a question from the audience that you don't have the answer. This happened to me a couple of times, and I know that it's not the best situation, especially if you're having a very important presentation such as your graduation defense. And it's of course not good to say that you don't know the answer to that question. So what would be actually better is to say that you don't remember the answer at that moment. Always keep in mind that the audience are also aware that you're on a stage, you're under pressure, and it could happen that you actually forget the answer of that particular question at that moment. And you can actually benefit from that a little bit, but you have to convince the other person that your knowledge, as I talked in the first step, is broad enough about the subject that you're talking about. You just can't remember that one particular thing. I wouldn't use this "I don't remember at the moment" too many times during a presentation, because then it would look super fake. If you're not in an academic environment, or if you're presenting something about a project that you will have updates about that particular project, then you might actually say something else, which is "I don't know this, but I'll learn and get back to you." And I think this is also very assuring, very nice answer to a question that you don't know the answer. So those are my tips about academic presentations mostly. Like I said, if you want me to do more presentation related videos, you can give this video a thumbs up and I'll understand. I do a lot of education, success, and also lifestyle, organization, and planning related videos on my channel. So if you're interested in this kind of content, I would love to have you as a subscriber. The last thing I want to say is that remember, confidence is key. Especially if you're presenting something about a project that you've been working on for a while. Know that you are the person in the room with the most knowledge about this topic, and feel that confidence while you're presenting. That's all I wanted to share with you today. I hope you liked the video, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye guys!